Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Welcome to Hong Kong Confidential. I'm Jules Hannaford and I'm your host. I'm an Australian woman and I've been living in Hong Kong for many years. I'm a mother, a teacher, an author, and I want to share my wisdom and the wisdom of others with you. Thanks for joining me and I hope you enjoy the show. A warning to our listeners. This podcast contains discussion about suicide. Listener discretion is advised. If you need support, please contact your local crisis line or helpline. And if you're in Hong Kong and you'd like to call the Samaritans hotline, you can call them on 2896 0000. Today I'm here with Anne Pearce. Hi Anne, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Jules. Thank you very much for inviting me on.
So I'm excited to talk to you about Weez Week. If you can tell me a little bit about what that is and what's your goal?
Sure. Weez Week is a campaign around youth suicide prevention. And the theme is to talk, listen, and care about suicide. The goal is to encourage people to be open about talking about suicide. So it becomes a means of, if we all become more familiar with talking about suicide in the way that we're okay about talking about our physical health. We've become a bit better about talking about our mental health, but there is a lot of stigma around talking about suicide. So by talking about it, the aim is to help keep young people's suicide safe. So basically, and then also young people themselves, is to encourage help-seeking behaviour in young people. If you're not feeling good about what's going on in your head, that it is safe to reach out and ask for help.
Yeah, I think it's really important for young people in particular to know that it's okay to say that they're not okay. And that there doesn't need to be a stigma involved with it. Do you agree?
I agree fully, Jules. I think when I make the analogy of, if you're experiencing physical pain, then you do something about it. You tell someone, and you're aware of it, and you talk to someone, and you do something. But then see, if you've got mental pain, which is, whatever's going on in your head is causing pain, discomfort, then yes, there's no shame in reaching out and asking for help, just in the way that you did if you had physical pain.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that doing podcasts like this, running Weez Week and things like that, hopefully will start to open up the conversation about suicide and make people feel more comfortable talking about it, because it shouldn't have a stigma associated with it, and it shouldn't be a taboo to talk about it, because like you say, if you had diabetes, you'd go and get help. Why can't we get help if we have mental health issues?
I completely agree, Jules. And that's what this is all about. It's trying to give, part of the campaign is just providing some reference material as well to help people dip into and sort of talk about, how to listen, how to open conversations, and how to talk on this very difficult subject. And, there is stigma around it, because, to be honest, I suppose a mindset is, it's not going to happen. It doesn't affect me. So it's not something I really need to talk about. It's not something I feel comfortable talking about. Yet, if we do talk about suicide, then we can help sort of improve our understanding of the subject as adults, and also young people, to understand mental health, what's actually happening to them. So, if you're experiencing difficult feelings, then being able to identify what they are and to say, as we discussed before, is to be able to say, I am okay about asking for help. It's okay not to be okay, and it's also okay to ask for help.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so wonderful that you're helping get that message out with Weez Week. Are there other local mental health groups that support Weez Week?
Yes, there are 2 fantastic organisations, Kelly Support Group and Mind Hong Kong.
Great. So for our listeners out there who are not in Hong Kong, Kelly Support Group are a group who work specifically with teenagers and help them with all kind of social and emotional support. And Mind Hong Kong are a fantastic resource, aren't they, for helping people with mental health issues and spreading the word that there shouldn't be a stigma and that mental health is something that we should be able to speak freely about and not be judged about.
Correct, that's right. The goal of Mind Hong Kong is that no one, should suffer from any mental health issue alone.
So what are some of the events you have planned for Weez Week? What's going on that people in the community can access?
Okay, there'll be information on the website, weezproject.com, just information talked about resources on how talking, listening and caring. So within there's access to a training module on suicide prevention training. But events, you asked specifically, there's a couple of things, a few quite fun things going on that will help promote Weez Week. So we're working with an amazing organisation, Hong Kong Walls, who find spaces in Hong Kong and get permission to put artwork up there, and they link the spaces with artists. And Stern Rockwell, who's a street artist, will be painting a mural around youth suicide prevention. So that's an exciting thing to go up. The Weez Wall. So we're just, all these things go down to the last minute, but we're just confirming the location. And I think sort of we've got to be a little bit COVID safe as well. So just make sure people don't inundate Stern when he's there. And after that, there will be hopefully an amazing piece of artwork that will help raise awareness. So that's one thing. Also, Kelly Support Group are hoping to do something similar themselves, something internally involving young people, as they're talking with the young people they're connected with about what their thoughts and feelings are around suicide and how they want to talk about it and what sort of support they want, and also what they would like the adults in their life to know about. And we're hoping that what they're aiming to do is to translate this into some sort of creation, whether it's a wall, which would be a nice thing to do, but we're just working that out. Another thing that's going on is that my husband, Tony Bruno, is going to be doing a fundraiser, an awareness raiser and a fundraiser, and he is going to walk the Hong Kong Coastal Path, which is 65 kilometres around Hong Kong Island.
Wow, good for him.
Yeah, he's going to do it in a day. Starting at 5 a.m, he hopes to finish by the end of that day, certainly within 24 hours.
And will people be able to sponsor Tony by going to your website?
Yes.
Great. So I'll do that. I'm going to sponsor him because that's amazing.
It's not up yet, but it will be. We're just finalising. There'll be a Simply Giving page, and that will be connected to the website.
Fantastic. Well, by the time this podcast comes out, that will be up on the webpage. So that's brilliant.
Yes, excellent. Yeah. One other thing that we'll be doing, and this is also working with Mind Hong Kong and Kelly's Support Group, is that we're putting together a panel, myself and representatives from those 2 organisations, to talk about suicide and suicide prevention. So it's something for parents, adults, teachers, and those sort of in the lives of young people.
See, that's fantastic, because that's the experts coming in to tell us about how we can talk to our young people about their feelings and what you can do if you have any concerns and things like that.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's knowing what to do and heightening one's awareness of mental health issues and accepting that they are all around the place and that anyone and any family can have a young person who is struggling with their mental health, and it may be difficult to see.
Yes, and that's what I was going to say. There's not always warning signs, is there? Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't.
That's right. I mean, the sense from the experts is that there are almost always warning signs. However, you've got to be
tuned in to notice them.
Into them. That's right. So you've got to be aware of things potentially to look out for. And it boils down to if somebody is behaving very differently from what you would describe as their normal self, whether it's they're angry, agitated, irritated, changes in sleep or eating patterns, irritability, or perhaps even use of substance, which maybe they hadn't done before, or increasing that. So there are a number of things which you can potentially piece together, but being aware of what they are. If somebody is then talking in a rather dark way, then that might also indicate there are some difficult feelings that they're wanting to get out.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I did the Suicide Assist course about just over a year ago, which was really eye-opening and really a wonderful course. And I learnt on that course that it's okay to ask people directly if they are having suicidal feelings. And I think that's something that people don't really recognise, or they feel afraid to ask. But I think it's very important that people understand that they can ask that.
It's very, very important, Jules. I think there's this sense of if you mention suicide, then what you'll do is put the thought into someone's head and they'll act on it. Well, actually, it's an act of caring, that you're recognising that something may not be quite right with an individual, that they don't seem to be their normal selves, that you might want to say, you seem very, very sad. Are you thinking about taking your life? So you're directly bringing up the question so that then you're opening up. And if this is something that is going through their mind, then what you've done immediately is open the door to enable them to talk about it, knowing that you care enough to have recognised that they're not their regular selves, and then they have the opportunity to talk.
Yeah, absolutely. And then if somebody does say that they're having suicidal feelings, then your role is to get them help from professionals.
That's right. And try and fix their problems, but certainly refer them to somebody who can help.
So, Anne, can you tell us a little bit about how you came to be the founder of this important awareness-raising campaign, and where does Weez Week, the name, come from?
I set up the Weez Project after losing my son, Jamie, to suicide in 2017. The Weez Project is named after his tag. Jamie one of his passions was street art. He was a sticker artist. That was his particular love. And he would design some really, really rather intriguing stickers, and so gave himself the tag Weez. So everything, the things that he designed was all around Weez. So we used Weez as the name for the Weez Project. Jamie's death came very much out of the blue, and that's why I think it's very important that we have this learning and understanding about how young people may be feeling and not expressing themselves, and that potentially in some young people there are suicidal thoughts going on. But unless you have that awareness, you won't tune into that. So that's why I set up the Weez Project, was that what happened to Jamie and what happened to my family should not happen to anybody else. We want young people to stay and to get the most that they can out of their lives, and to live happy and fulfilling lives. And if they have difficulties, then what we all need, I think we have responsibility as community, is to enable them to talk about it and for us to be aware that, as we talked about, along with physical health, is that we are supporting their mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just have to say I'm so sorry that you lost Jamie in this way and that you've had to go through this traumatic time in your life. It's incredibly inspirational to see how you're turning such a tragedy into something that's helping other people, and that you're raising awareness on such a sensitive issue, but something that really does need to be talked about. And thank you for the work that you're doing. As a teacher of young people, I think that it's amazing what you're doing. And I know that the work that you're doing and the awareness raising that's happened since Jamie passed away, I'm sure it's helped other teenagers and helped people reach out and get help. So that's such a wonderful thing.
It is. And sadly, there are ongoing reminders. Yeah, Hong Kong lost another young person last year. And from my perspective, a friend of mine contacted me because someone she knew was talking to her about her son and saying, I don't know what to do about him. You know, he's worrying me. And my friend knew then how to help her friend get help for her son because of what she had learnt through the Weez Project and work that we'd done with school too.
That's amazing. You must be incredibly proud that you were able to play a role in helping that young lad hopefully get the support that he needed. But it must be difficult, I imagine, when other teenagers die by suicide in Hong Kong, and that must bring up old reminders and old feelings that must be hard for you to manage as an individual and a family, I'm sure.
It is a desperate reminder of the grief and pain. To be honest, it doesn't really ever go. So it's just a little bit of the fire is stoked a little bit with something that happens. You know, if another young person takes their lives and you relive the grief and anger and sadness that you went through. And when I experience that, it's further inspiration too that this work needs to continue. And I owe it to Jamie and I owe it to other young people and their families that we have to be alert, you know, what's going on with young people in our community.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing all of that. Do you feel like working on the Weez Project is a way of helping you deal with your grief? Does it help in some way, or is it just something that you do alongside your grief, which continues to just be there?
It is there, and there is an element of, I wouldn't say comfort, but there's an element of good needs to come out of tragedy. And that's what I take. I know there are things that I can build on, and I want to continue to do so.
I think that's just so admirable, and you're an incredible role model for all of us parents. I think it's really quite amazing what you're doing. I think a lot of people struggle to ask for help because of fear of judgment if they are having suicidal feelings. How can we let people know that there's no shame in it? Is that what you feel that Weez Week is doing, because we're opening up the conversation about suicide?
Yes, I do. As I said before, it's a bit of, if you're suffering any sort of pain, there's no shame. And that's what we're trying to encourage young people to see, that there is no shame in asking for help. Why should there be? In fact, you're jolly courageous if you're stepping out there and asking for help. Isn't that an amazing thing to feel, that you can feel proud of, saying, I recognise what's happening to me. I understand. I'm feeling like this. I don't like feeling like this. I want to do something so that I can feel more like I really want to, and that I can be in greater control of my feelings and emotions. And therefore, talking, I think, Jules, is a way to get these feelings out. And the other element of talking is also listening. We have to be aware that a lot of campaigns, a lot of things is saying, oh, we're encouraging young people to talk. Yes, saying you must talk, you must go and talk to someone. The other side to that is about listening. So if we're encouraging young people to talk, we also have to build up our own listening skills and listening skills in young people so that they can listen to their friends and their siblings and listening, really listening. It's not just pretending to do so because you'll be seen through, but really listening and doing so with empathy. And empathy is not about, it's all going to be okay. Well, you can't guarantee it's all going to be okay. But what you can do is just let somebody talk. And I think, remember, what it's like when you're talking, you're also listening to yourself. You're listening to what you're saying. And that can help you come up with your own solutions. You're not, ask for somebody's help with solutions, or just by talking, you can also try and work out, well, what is it that's troubling me? Why? What can I do about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So you've talked about some of the critical factors that can help prevent people from taking their lives, like listening and talking and taking away the stigma associated with suicide, recognizing some of the key indicators that something might not be right. Is there anything else that you can think of that we can do to help people not take their lives?
I think in addition to that, it's just, as a society, making sure that there is helplines, chat lines and so forth are available, and that that's something that is commonly to hand, so that young people could well have in their wallet or somewhere on their phone, on their wallet, just where do I go to if I'm having, if I'm suddenly feeling not good, I need to reach out. Let's make it easy. Let's make it easy to talk to someone and to do so anonymously, whether it's a physical talk, verbal talk, or you can also talk through chat. There are effective chat rooms too.
Yeah, that's a great idea, actually, and having that readily available and making sure that the teenagers know these numbers and that they know where they can get help. I mean, we have the Samaritans in Hong Kong. There's a hotline. So that's one place. And I'm sure teenagers can contact Kelly Support as well. But in other countries, I've got a lot of listeners around the world. In other countries, there are helplines. There are suicide support lines. So wherever you are, it's important that people understand how they can reach out for help, because if you're feeling desperate at 2:00 in the morning, somebody might not be available for you to talk to at that time. Yes. So being able to pick up the phone or get on chat is really important, isn't it?
I think it's vital. And just saying, this is a way in which you can help yourself, and it's non-threatening. Nobody that you know needs to know that that's what you're doing. You can do it anonymously and also with confidence that the person you are in contact with knows what they're doing, and it's their job to help you.
Yeah, I think you would probably feel like you weren't being judged if you reached out to somebody who is trained to deal with this kind of thing and deals with this each day.
Yes.
That would probably make it a little bit easier, wouldn't it, in the first instance?
Yes.
I think, what about well-being plans or mindfulness programs and things like that? Do you think that that's important, that even young children learn how to manage their feelings and learn how to do self-care activities?
Certainly self-care is very important. It's recognizing the emotions, what's happening, being able to know, I'm feeling like this, or I'm feeling angry because, something happened to me, and what can I do? How do I comfort myself? How do I calm myself? Breathing, and it is as simple in many ways. Breathe. It sounds really simple, but actually it's one of the most effective things we as human beings can do. We've got this inbuilt system that helps us control our bodies and our minds. Breathe. And mindfulness it certainly clicks it for some people, and teaching these skills to young children, young adults is important. Just add to the toolkit things that you've got available to you. Being prepared, having a self-care plan that you're consciously aware of, thinking, okay, what are my trigger points? What does make me feel like this? So that you can avoid getting into a situation that is painful or upsetting, or that if you are in that situation, you recognize that you're there and that you've worked out calming mechanisms or self-help mechanisms that you can deploy at that time.
I think it's also good to recognize who's in your network. Who can you reach out to if you need help? Is it a parent or a teacher or a friend or your cousin or your coach or whatever? Like, I think that it's great for people to recognize who their support network is. Would you agree?
I think you're absolutely right in encouraging that, because one of the things that is so critical to our mental well-being is connectedness as well, and knowing who your connections are, and that you know who you feel comfortable about talking with, about opening up to, and being connected and staying connected with your general groups. Just following on from the theme of connectedness, it's for us as to, I think, encourage young people and us as adults too, is if we're noticing that someone is not as connected as perhaps they used to be, or we think they should, then reach out. Say, I haven't seen you online for a while. You okay? And just check in so that person knows that they're being looked out for. And also a reminder to oneself to stay connected. It can be a bit hard at times, and we don't feel that you're pushing yourself into somebody else's face or what have you, but be prepared to do that. Stay connected.
Yeah, look, I think that's really important advice. And in this day and age with COVID and social distancing, it's even more important that we stay connected and more important that we keep an eye on our friends and family. And can you tell me what role you think schools can play in educating people about mental health and providing safe spaces for teens to talk?
I think you've just said it, actually, educating young people about mental health. This goes beyond talking about well-being. Well-being is very important, yet we're going to help young people manage their emotions, then they need to learn about mental health, what it means, what some symptoms and issues, and also how you then cope with it, and so that you can talk about what your feelings are. Let's see, I think the terminology is mental health literacy, so that you have the means by which you can talk with knowledge about this topic so that it means something to you. And I think schools have a very important role to play, teaching young people about mental health and also their teachers, because in order to teach about mental health, Jules, you actually have to understand it. You have to understand it yourself and feel comfortable in having those discussions with young people. And beyond that too, schools are part of a community of parents, and these three prongs need to have the same level of education and understanding. So parents, teachers and staff, and students, so that we all have that core foundational knowledge about mental health.
Like you said, if you have that understanding about mental health and you have the language associated with it, then it makes it easier to have those conversations, doesn't it?
I think that's so important. Language is critical to everything. I mean, in schools, and we teach students their academic language, recognizing how important that is in order to achieve academically. Let's also teach health and mental health language. Then we can stay safe.
Yeah, absolutely. I read somewhere that a lot of kids in particular only kind of know about the emotions of anger, sadness, and happiness. And there's so many more emotions, but they don't have the language associated with it to identify them. So even teaching about emotions in primary school is really important.
Very much so. We use emojis, which are great, absolutely great. So let's actually describe, okay, what's it like to feel like, what's this? What do you feel like? Why might you be feeling like this? And what can you do?
Yeah, absolutely. And what advice would you have for anybody who is having suicidal thoughts who might be listening to this podcast at the moment?
Firstly, may not be great comfort, but you're not the only one. As there are, sadly, many young people will experience or do experience suicidal thoughts at some point. And know that there's no shame at all in feeling like that. It's an expression of some pain that you're experiencing. And it's I suppose, saying to you, I've got to do something to stop this pain. So if you are experiencing suicidal thoughts, then recognize that and then think about, okay, why am I feeling like this? And what do I want the outcome to be? Do I want to continue feeling like this? No, I don't. I know I don't. It may feel like, it's too hard to go on living. Well, challenge yourself. Why? Are you really sure that you want the alternative? And difficult as though it may seem, just turn the other way and think about everything that has happened, all the good things that have happened. Think about life that you've experienced and also the life that is ahead for you. Know that you're loved. You're loved and you're wanted, and we need you. The world needs you because everyone has so much individually to contribute, and we want you.
That's absolutely lovely. And get help, speak to somebody, whether it's online, whether it's talking to a teacher, whether it's going to see the counsellor, whether it's speaking to your pastor at the church or whatever it is, get some help. Don't be afraid to reach out for help. In my experience, people who are really feeling very, very low often feel like they're not deserving of support or that they're going to be a burden on people by asking for help. I think it's really, really important we remind people that they are loved and that people do want to help them and that they're never a burden and that people are more than happy to help.
I think that's so well said. We just want everybody to be around and be happy, and we're also very happy to be out there and to help. And no one's going to feel it's a burden to be asked, can I talk to you? Of course you can. Happy to do that.
Yeah, of course. And what advice or words of wisdom or words of comfort would you have for anybody who's coping with the loss of a family member or a friend who has died by suicide?
I think it's really important in many ways, it's the same sort of thing. You can't do this alone. I think it's important to get professional support to help you process your emotions. And you also need the support of family and friends. And again, family and friends, not going to stand back from supporting, ask for their help. We had some amazing support, just friends, family being there, and professional support, again, is important. Not that you can necessarily piece everything together, but you've got somebody who really does understand an individual who's experienced suicidal thoughts or gone on to do something and can talk to you with knowledge, with true empathy. And that's certainly what I found, is talking to somebody who really knew what they were talking about and enabled me to let out my anger, my guilt, and my grief. And the advice was, grief isn't linear. Grief just comes and goes, and there aren't necessarily sort of set stages. There are experiences you will go through. Having somebody talk to you about what to expect and also what you're experiencing at a particular time, and being there just if you need someone to cry on or to shout at or just to listen.
Did you reach out to other parents who have lost children to suicide? Was that something that you did, and was that helpful?
We've done it on one occasion, yes, which was very sad.
Was it helpful to have somebody who really understood what you were going through, or was it just all too sad and difficult?
I think for the people on the receiving end who reached out to, there was certainly a recognition that, again, they're not alone, that it's happened to others, and what's happened in their family doesn't make their family a strange family. It's just something that's happened within that family, and giving them the support and comfort that they can pull within their family and rebuild their lives whilst honouring their child. It's an incredibly important thing to do.
And that's what you're doing with Weez Week, isn't it? You're honouring Jamie and you're honouring his love of street art.
Yes.
Where did his love of street art come from?
From a little bit of being around Hong Kong, around Soho. So if we've been out family meals and there's some amazing bits of graffiti art. So he just picked up on graffiti and there, and other places that we visited, seeing graffiti around, and he got really into this, and he really got into a sticker artist, Shepherd Fairy. He's the founder of the Obey clothing company, really, really cool clothes. And he also was the artist behind the Obama Hope poster. Jamie really admired him. And one of the best days of his life was actually meeting Shepherd Fairy when he came to Hong Kong. And they exchanged stickers. So it was just
no way, that's amazing.
An awesome, awesome day.
Oh, that's wonderful. Can you tell me a little bit about what Jamie was like?
Oh, Jamie, a bit careful, but parental bias here. He was smart, able. He was a gentle young man, kind, although his sister wouldn't agree with that. He was kind and caring. He was interested. Jamie always had something going on. Jamie just knew things. He wanted to know about things. He knew how things worked. He was curious. His social and political mind was opening, and he filled it. One of the things that sticks in my mind thinking about him as within there was a project he did a few years ago at school, and he had picked up on the fact that there were disproportionate numbers of black people being murdered by white police officers in the United States. And this was about 5 or 6 years ago. And he did a lot of research and wrote quite an insightful piece on the back of that. He just wanted to know stuff, and he enjoyed conversations with people who were able to, who wanted to talk about these sorts of issues in detail. He loved music, like films, wide range of interests.
Yeah, what an amazing young man.
And the other thing that absolutely characterises Jamie is his athleticism. As I'm talking to you, I have two images in my mind of him leaping. One, leaping with great abandon down sand dunes in Dorset, and two, leaping on the ski slopes in Whistler, leaping down an amazingly tricky jump, which he landed with absolute expertise. He was incredibly skillful skier.
What wonderful memories.
Yes. And he's a footballer and just a very athletic young man, very at one with his physical being.
Oh, you must be so proud of him. The way you're describing him is just beautiful. Like, what a wonderful young man. Just lovely. Such a loss.
Isn't it just? And the world is a poorer place. And I think that's also, if we're talking just back to what we were talking about for young people to think about is
the grief you leave behind, the impact.
Without making anybody feel guilty, but also just think about the fact that your mark on the world, you've got your opportunity to put your mark on the world.
Yeah.
to make a difference in the way that you want to and that's important to you. And that's ahead of you. And
yes, you got your whole life ahead of you, and the darkest day that you're experiencing is not going to last forever. Things can improve.
They can, they do. And as we say, as with a storm, it will pass.
Absolutely.
And these thoughts will pass, and these rotten days will pass, and they will be replaced by beautiful and enlightening days that everybody deserves to have in their lives.
Oh, Anne, that's so beautiful. You're making me cry. I don't know if you want to answer this question, and feel free not to, but in hindsight, looking back, were there any signs that Jamie was struggling? Have you been able to see that with the knowledge that you have now? Feel free not to answer it if you don't want to.
It's very difficult to actually pinpoint anything that was, say it's important to recognise warning signs, even though I know what some of them are. And I think the other point to recognise is that even though there may be warning signs, not everybody is going to display them, and maybe self-aware enough to put up a facade.
Yes, I think people can hide them, can't they?
I think there is that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why what you're saying about talking and listening and asking questions is so important.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so important.
The knowing what I know now is the most critical piece, is that we all have to know about suicide and that it can happen in our families, and that then we are going to be in a position to prevent it because we're able to talk openly without shame or stigma about a very difficult topic.
It's a heavy topic, it is, but it needs to be talked about.
I agree, Jules. Another thing I think schools can do is to have systems in place that will pick up young adults at risk. Now, call them it's the unseen, the unheard, and the overlooked. Children who are sort of presenting, to use the term, as normal. They don't have any obvious and apparent mental health issues, behavioural issues and so forth. So not a concern, not an academic problem. Everyone's okay. I think that means going beyond doing a survey, asking students to tell us how happy they are and so forth. But it's schools also observe and see young people in their buildings or on their Zoom screens every day. And as a community, teachers within schools then got eyes on every student and collective knowledge about every student. And if that were all pulled together, let's look at Class X. Let's just have a look at each child in there and how do we think they're doing emotionally.
Yes, one person might just raise a little concern. It might be very small, but then the next teacher will go, oh, yes, I noticed this. And suddenly you're putting some pieces together and a bigger picture forms that individuals won't necessarily see.
That's right. And families, you see one dimension of your child, whereas if you've got a community of teachers who are all looking out for each individual child, then perhaps there may be things that do pop up which would otherwise be overlooked, unheard and unseen.
Yeah, that's such a really important point. So it's about leaders in the community, whether they're teachers or coaches, whoever they are, they need to communicate with each other if they have even the smallest concern, because you never know what it will unravel.
That's right, Jules. We are all complex people.
We are. And like you said earlier, it is easy to put up a facade. People can hide what they're truly feeling.
Suicide prevention, to me, has two facets. Firstly, is the prevention of crisis, which is sort of what we've been talking about, is being able to identify and to look out for people who potentially might be displaying some things and being aware that there could be things going on under the surface. So that prevention of crisis. And then going the next way, also prevention in crisis. And this is where suicide training, suicide prevention training comes in, that we can all learn that in the way that we would learn, CPR. We can all learn suicide prevention training, how to respond to somebody in crisis. So there's a lot that this topic deserves consideration.
And that's what we were mentioning before about giving that initial first aid where you are getting them the help that they need immediately. That's why, if you're asking somebody if they're feeling suicidal, you don't have to fix the problem yourself. You just have to help that person get the professional help that they need. So that's vitally important. Thank you for pointing that out.
Well, I now believe that suicide is preventable. And, sort of looking back, I think if the people around Jamie, all of us, and Jamie himself had known about suicide and that there had been discussion about suicide and that we knew of the warning signs, however subtle, quite possibly something may have been picked up, and Jamie himself may have learnt enough to have been able to reach out for help.
And how can my listeners find out more about Weez Week?
There's information on Weez Week website. The website address is weezproject.com. And on there's information about Weez Week, about the sort of resources that we've been talking about, and events that are taking place.
Oh, sorry, Anne. And what's the dates of Weez Week, please?
Weez Week is the 22nd to the 27th of February 21.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for opening up and sharing. I know it's a very, very emotional topic. It certainly has impacted me, and I know that it's going to impact my listeners and get them thinking about how they can make a difference and how they can support others and how we can all open up the conversation about suicide. So thank you so much, Anne. It's just been an absolute pleasure talking to you today.
Thank you, Jules. My pleasure too. Thank you for listening.
Oh, thank you so much. And Anne, I just want to finish with a quote from the Weez wall, which says, "Don't bottle up your feelings. They can fester if you don't let them out."
Yes.
So I think that's a wonderful quote and a really, really lovely way to end this podcast.
Thank you, Jules.
Thank you, Anne. So for my listeners out there, if this is something that has moved you and you feel that this is a conversation that needs to be heard by people, please can you share this podcast with others? It'll help get Anne's story and Weez Week out there into the community. And I think that is just so important. Listening to this podcast could help save lives. And if we can save one person's life, Anne, we've done such a good job.
Haven't we just? And I think it's that we can all do it as individuals and a community, is that we can all help contribute to saving young people's lives and improving them.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Anne. It's just been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks, Jules.
So that brings us to the end of another Hong Kong Confidential podcast. I'm Jules Hannaford. Thanks for joining me, and I hope you'll be with me again next week. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please can you go to iTunes to rate and review it. I would really appreciate your feedback. You can email me at jules@hongkongconfidential.net, and you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Hong Kong Confidential. If you'd like to hit me up on Twitter, it's at Jules Hannaford. I would love to hear from you.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.